I recently reviewed both the 7900 XT and the 7900 GRE individually. However, today I want to take a look at both of these cards and talk about how they stack up. Hi, this is Rock on Tech, and today we're comparing the 7900 XT to the 7900 GRE. Well, the intro kind of says it all. I want to take the data from my last two videos, put the data side by side, and see how well the 7900 GRE and the 7900 XT stack up to each other. Now look, I'm well aware most people are not comparing the 7900 XT to the GRE. They are comparing the 7800 XT to the GRE. However, I had the data, so I figured why not share it. So if you appreciate the data, do me a favor, get subscribed, hit the like button, do all the YouTube stuff. And if you don't appreciate the data and if you think the video is a dumb idea, then maybe I can capture your attention with one of my other 100 plus videos on the channel. Now, it is important to know that all of these tests will be ran at stock settings. When I had the cards in my possession, the 7900 GRE was not yet fixed on the overclocking side of things. However, after I sent the cards back to Shadow Fox, AMD released an update to fix the overclocking issues with the 7900 GRE. Hardware Unboxed has a full video about this. I will have it linked down below if you want to see the overclocking results. Spoiler alert, they're very good, and in fact, the 7900 GRE overclock can outperform a stock 7900 XT in certain situations. Again, the video is linked below. But for today's video, everything will be ran at stock settings. Additionally, if you saw one of my last two videos, then you're not going to see really anything new here. It's going to be all the same data presented side by side. So before, I only talked about the 7900 XT in one video, and then I only talked about the GRE in another video. Today, we're taking that same data and putting it side by side. So all the hardware settings are the same, all the software settings or BIOS settings are exactly the same. I will briefly have all of that on the screen right now for your convenience if you want to pause the video and take a look, but I will not talk about it because I've already talked about it twice. And lastly, most of these tests are ran at 1440p. However, I do have a little bit of 4K sprinkled in towards the end of the benchmarks. I do understand that some people disagreed with my assessment of the cards in my previous videos whenever I said that they were mostly 1440p cards. However, your opinion of what constitutes a 4K card or your criteria for a 4K card may differ from my criteria for a 4K card, and we can just kind of leave it at that. Either way, the majority of the results will be ran at 1440p, but there will be some 4K sprinkled in there, like I said before. Now, I want to say one final time, thank you to Shadow Fox for sending me over these two cards, because without him, none of this data would be possible. None of these videos would be possible. So thank you so much, Shadow Fox. And Shadow Fox is not only a subscriber, he is also a Patreon member, and I have not said thank you to my Patreon members in the last couple of videos. My apologies for that. So thank you guys. You were all incredibly awesome, and I really do appreciate all the support. And now, without any further ado, let's take a look at the 7900 XT and see how well it compares to the 7900 GRE. Okay, first up is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I ran the in-game benchmark at 1440p on the extreme preset. On the left is the XT, and on the right is the GRE. The final average for the XT at 1440p is 176 FPS, and for the GRE, it is 158 FPS. And one more thing I want you to keep in mind is that these two cards are $200 apart, so you have to ask yourself the question, is the XT worth $200 more for the given performance? Also, as you can see, the GRE here is noticeably cooler than the 7900 XT, coming in about 20 degrees colder overall. Next up is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I ran the in-game benchmark at 1440p on the Ultra preset. The final average for the 7900 XT is 151 FPS, and the final average for the 7900 GRE is 126 FPS. And again, the GRE is noticeably colder than the 7900 XT, but the 7900 XT does have better 1% lows. The 7900 GRE is pulling in less power, and so it does depend on what you kind of value most here. Again, there's a $200 price difference here. Both cards are great, and both cards have their advantages and their disadvantages. Next up is CyberPunk 2077, and I ran the in-game benchmark at 1440p on the Ultra preset with no upscaling, no ray tracing, or anything like that. And as you can see, the final average for the 7900 XT is 120 FPS, whereas for the 7900 GRE, it is only 104 FPS. And again, the 1% lows are noticeably better here for the 7900 XT. But also, again, the overall temperature and power draw is noticeably better here for the 7900 GRE. Next up is God of War 2018. I ran the opening sequence of the game at native 1440p on the Ultra preset, and the 7900 XT is averaging about 159 FPS, which I do believe is the in-game limit here, and the 7900 GRE is averaging 133 FPS. Also, the 1% lows here are noticeably better. You're talking around a 20-something frame difference between the two cards, and now the temperature results are not that different. Yes, the 7900 GRE here is colder, but it's only 9 to 10 C colder, whereas in other titles it was closer to about 20 C. So God of War is a game where I would say the overall edge probably goes to the 7900 XT, but again, you have to ask yourself the question, is it worth another $200? Next up is Hogwarts Legacy. I ran the game at native 1440p on the Ultra preset in Hogsmeade, and as you can see, the 7900 XT is averaging about 138 FPS, and the 7900 GRE is averaging about 110 to 113 FPS, give or take. Now, once again, the GRE is colder than the XT, and that will continue to be a theme all throughout these benchmarks, but I want you to look at the 1% lows here. More or less, the longer that this benchmark runs on, they're about the same. It doesn't matter which card you have, the 1% lows are about the same the longer you watch. It's hard to say here, but I would probably say the GRE is the card I would pick here because the 1% lows are about the same, but the card is colder and is pulling in less wattage, and overall Hogwarts Legacy is not the most optimized game out there. Next up is Starfield. I'm running around New Atlantis at native 1440p on the Ultra preset. The 7900 XT is averaging about 102 to 103 FPS, whereas the 7900 GRE is averaging about 87 FPS. And the 1% lows again are in favor of the 7900 XT. That is a running theme, just like the temperature for the GRE all throughout these benchmarks. Once again, you have to ask yourself the question, do you see $200 worth of a value difference here? And really, that's only something you can decide, but the XT is putting up better numbers here, but the GRE is not too far behind. Next up is everybody's brand new favorite game, Helldivers 2, native 1440p on the Ultra preset. The 7900 XT is averaging about 90 to 92 FPS, and the 7900 GRE is averaging about 78 FPS. The 1% lows here are again in favor of the 7900 XT, but the overall temperature and power draw again is in favor of the 7900 GRE. Another thing to notice is that the 7900 XT has 20 gigabytes of VRAM, and the 7900 GRE has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. While the 7900 XT has more VRAM, it doesn't really matter because in a lot of these games, even on ultra settings, we're not getting anywhere near 16 or 20 gigabytes of VRAM in terms of overall utilization. And yes, I know the testing is not exactly identical. Cut me some slack. This game does not have a built-in benchmark, but overall, it doesn't matter if it's 6 gigabytes of VRAM or 7 gigabytes of VRAM. The fact is, we're not coming anywhere near 16 or 20 gigabytes of VRAM. And now let's take a look at 4K. First up is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I ran the in-game benchmark at native 4K on the Extreme preset. The 7900 XT is averaging 106 FPS, and the 7900 GRE is averaging 94 FPS. The VRAM utilization is around 10 gigabytes, give or take, for both cards, and the overall GPU temperature is substantially better on the 7900 GRE. Again, we're seeing about a 20-degree difference here between the two cards, but the GRE is also pulling in noticeably less wattage. The 1% lows are pretty bad for both cards, below 50 FPS. Next up is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I ran the in-game benchmark at native 4K on the Ultra preset. The final average for the 7900 XT is 92 FPS. The final average for the 7900 GRE is 78 FPS. Again, the temperature is in favor of the GRE as well as the overall power draw, but the 1% lows are in favor of the 7900 XT. The VRAM utilization is a little bit over 10 gigabytes of VRAM for both cards. I have no idea why there is a discrepancy between the overall VRAM utilization here. Both cards are at 4K on the Ultra preset, but hey, that's the way gaming goes sometimes, I guess. Next up is CyberPunk 2077. I ran the in-game benchmark at native 4K on the Ultra preset. No ray tracing, no upscaling, no frame generation of any kind. The final average for the 7900 XT is 54 FPS. The final average for the 7900 GRE is 44 FPS. Again, there is a noticeable difference in the overall temperature between the two cards. The GRE is noticeably colder, and the 1% lows are terrible for both cards, but the 7900 XT takes the crown here with 43 FPS as opposed to the GRE at 35 FPS on the 1% lows. And the overall VRAM utilization here is just under 9 gigabytes for both cards. Next up is Hogwarts Legacy. I ran around in Hogsmeade at native 4K on the Ultra preset, and the 7900 XT is averaging about 77 FPS, and the 7900 GRE is averaging about 58 FPS, just under 60 FPS, and the 1% lows here are about 58 FPS on the 7900 XT, and the 1% lows are about 41 FPS on the 7900 GRE. Both cards are pulling in a little bit over 12 gigabytes of VRAM, and once again, the power draw and the temperature is in favor for the 7900 GRE. Next up is Starfield. I ran the game at native 4K on the Ultra preset, and I'm walking around New Atlantis. With the 7900 XT, we're averaging 68 FPS, and with the 7900 GRE, we're averaging 57 FPS. The 1% lows are in favor of the 7900 XT at 54 FPS versus 46 FPS for the 7900 GRE. Once again, the temperature is in favor of the GRE, coming in at only 50C as opposed to 68C on the 7900 XT, and the overall power draw, of course, is a little bit better for the 7900 GRE. Both cards are pulling in a little bit above 8.5 gigabytes of VRAM. Again, I'm not sure why there's a slight difference in the VRAM utilization, but this is the numbers that MSI Afterburner reported to me. By the GRE, I didn't really think I would say that, but you know, after looking at the data and considering the new update for the overclocking potential of the 7900 GRE, I definitely think that's probably the go-to card for the rest of this generation, at least on the AMD side of things, and here's why. Okay, sure, the 7900 XT is faster, no doubt about it. It is a faster card, but it's also $200 more expensive. So that means the GRE is giving you the majority of the performance you get with the 7900 XT, but you're saving $200 if you're comparing US MSRP to US MSRP. Now, the 7900 XT does have more VRAM, but the reality of the situation is, as a gamer, you're probably not really ever going to use all of that VRAM. I mean, for crying out loud, the majority of gamers in the community are still arguing amongst each other about 8 gigabytes being relevant. Every time a tech YouTuber, including myself, makes a video about 8 gigabytes of VRAM and says, hey, 8 gigabytes is not enough anymore, we need to push past that, we get a ton of comments about people complaining about how we're wrong and 8 gigabytes is totally fine. So if we can't even decide that 8 gigabytes is not enough, then 16 gigabytes on the GRE is definitely more than enough. And so yes, while the 7900 XT does have more VRAM, at this point it wouldn't really matter. The 16 gigabytes on the GRE is more than enough. And finally, the GRE is also pulling in less power, so that means the temperature is typically going to be lower. I say typically because you can get a reference model 7900 XT, at least in North America, but you can't for the GRE. The GRE is really only selling AIB partner models. And so that means, you know, a lot of the models available are going to have better coolers and things of that nature. So you should expect to see better thermals on the GRE. And in this case, the Power Color Hellhound was absolutely phenomenal. It was smoking the 7900 XT in terms of thermal performance and power draw across the board at both native 1440p and native 4K. I think all in all, when you look at every single category, the GRE is a no-brainer, especially with the brand new AMD driver update allowing for more overclocking potential. But hey, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. That's it for this video. If you liked it, please do me a favor, hit that like button because it goes a long way in helping me out. And if you're new, get subscribed. And until next time, E-Rock out.